Clean release. Ignition. Good rocket motor burn. There's Mach 1, trimming now. There's Mach 3.
Looking up to the stars.
Now the pilots are going to be landing on runway 34 today, so that's coming from
We have liftoff.
Clear the tower.
Copy.
A nominal flight. Here comes the crew capsule back from space. And touchdown.
Billionaires Sir Richard Branson and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos recently made history by being amongst the first tourists to go to space. On July 11, 2021, Sir Richard Branson flew aboard his Virgin Galactic spaceship 2 Unity 22 spacecraft to the edge of space along with 5 other people. Virgin Galactic spacecraft was lifted off by a twin aeroplane to an altitude of about 50,000 feet, where it was dropped and then it lit its engine and was flown by 2 pilots on board to the edge of space. While a few days later, on the 20th of July, Jeff Bezos flew on his space company Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket along with 3 others to the edge of space. The New Shepard is a traditional rocket capsule design, which lifted off vertically from Bezos' private ranch in Texas, reaching an altitude of about 250,000 feet before stage separation, where the booster then landed propulsively while the capsule continued the flight, and landed using parachutes. But did going to space automatically make them astronauts or just space tourists? Well, it did. Before it didn't. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and the U.S. Armed Forces, formally defined an astronaut as a person who has flown higher than 50 miles or 80 kilometers above mean sea level. Which at the time, meant Jeff Bezos and Sir Richard Branson could officially claim the title of an astronaut and the astronaut wings. Which was all well and good, until the FAA decided to tighten the criteria for someone to be called an astronaut. On the day of Mr. Bezos' flight, the FAA officially changed the definition of an astronaut under the Commercial Space Astronaut Wings program, which made things a little more complicated for Bezos and Branson. According to the new definition of an astronaut, the FAA lays out 3 criteria that must be met in order to be eligible to be called an astronaut. Firstly, members need to meet flight crew qualifications as defined by the FAA. That is, an astronaut must be part of a crew. But in the case of Blue Origin, some members of the flight were not official employees of Blue Origin or contractors, but civilians, so the team could not be considered a crew. Similar to the case of Sir Richard Branson, which also did not meet up with the crew status. Secondly, the spacecraft needs to actually reach space. But even the legal definition of space is a bit murky and complicated. There are 2 definitions for space that are internationally recognized. There's the Kármán line and the 50-mile line. The Kármán line is an internationally recognized, imaginary line that officially defines the beginning of space. The Kármán line sits at an altitude of 100 kilometers or about 62 miles, above mean sea level. The Kármán line was set in the 1960s by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, the FAI, an international aeronautics record-keeping body. The FAI defines the Kármán line as space beginning from 100 kilometers, 62 miles, 54 nautical miles, or 330,000 feet above the Earth's sea level. Although in reality, space does not start at some imaginary line, rather, as we go higher, the atmosphere just gets thinner and thinner. According to the US Air Force, space begins at the 50-mile line, which as the name suggests, lies at 50 miles above mean sea level or about 80 kilometers. The FAA officially recognizes the 50-mile line as the start of space. only 4% of the world recognizes the 50-mile line as the edge of space, and which the US is amongst the 4%, while the remaining 96% recognizes the Kármán line. Both Virgin Galactic's Unity spacecraft and Blue Origin's New Shepard spacecraft crossed the 50-mile line during their respective trips, which means they officially made it to space. The New Shepard was designed to fly above both lines, according to Blue Origin. New Shepard, during Bezos' flight, reached an altitude of more than 65 miles, which meets the criteria of space. While Virgin Galactic's spacecraft reached an altitude of 53 miles during Branson's flight, which did meet the criteria of space, but only by the US standards, which spur a little back and forth between the two companies. Meaning, just a change of location could automatically mean Richard Branson never made it to space. The third criteria to be called astronauts according to the FAA is that they should have demonstrated activities during the flight that were essential to public safety, or contributed to human spaceflight safety. But what does this mean? This means they should have done something that would be considered an activity essential to public safety or human spaceflight safety. This would have been a bit easier to accomplish if there was, say, a pilot on board. For example, any maneuver or slight adjustment in trajectory could be considered an activity essential to human spaceflight safety. In the case of Branson's flight, the presence of pilots flying the Unity spacecraft can technically count as this criterion being fulfilled. But in the case of Bezos, however, no such activity was carried out, since the spacecraft was fully autonomous and required no input from anyone on board. So technically, both men may not be able to bear the astronaut wings or call themselves astronauts. However, the FAA can award honorary astronaut wings to individuals whose contribution to commercial human spaceflight merits special recognition. But why did the FAA decide to tighten the criteria for someone to be called an astronaut now? The FAA says these revisions to the astronaut definition were made in order to maintain the prestige of commercial space astronaut wings. If you liked this video and found it informative, subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.